Hello and welcome to Steve's Backyard Bonsai. Today while walking Luca, I found lying in the street a clump of Norfolk Island pine. Had been potted, so it's not as tall as me, but I've always wanted a Norfolk Island pine, but I thought I'd get started with some small ones. But this just came to me on a walk, and I'm going to do as much as I can today. I've watched a bunch of videos. The YouTube algorithm takes me to Nigel Saunders a lot, and I went back to his Norfolk Island pine when he repotted, and he did some severe root work, but he also pruned, some severe pruning. Between his videos and some of the others that I've seen on Norfolk Island pine, I think I can do some severe work today, and I have to. If this has to come in the house, it can't come in like this. Let me show you the whole tree. So here it is. It stands about, I don't know, 4.5 feet tall from the base of the pot. It was in a very small pot. This was probably a house plant for very many years, or you know, they just got tired of looking at it, or when the needles fell down on the ground, they got tired of stepping on them. But I am using my Bobcat Bonsai double-sided tool, forged with a root rake or root hook and a chopstick. Perfect for this exploration. And that's the first step I'm going to take with this. I got to see what I'm working with. Is this truly a clump? And this tree is very much alive. So even if this was individual trees at one time, I don't think there's any chance of them coming apart now. And I'm not going to try to take them apart now. I got to understand what's going on with this tree, and I've got to keep it alive if I want to do what I want to do. All right, this is almost going to hit the roof, and you may not see too far to the top, but that doesn't matter. What I want to do with these trees at this point is figure out, do I need them all? Then I got to figure out what each one of them adds to the composition, if anything. Like, I'm not sure this one adds anything. I've got to figure all that out. So my initial thoughts are, I want a total height, an overall height of as short as I could make this main tree, which appears to be right where my hand is now. And if that's the case, and this is my biggest tree in the planting, how short can I make the others? I've seen cuts made in the middle of these whorls, and people say, we'll see what happens, and then for sure you get a whorl of branches right there. It wants to grow an apex, or it dies back. Either way, to be safe, I would probably cut above the whorl and expecting either dieback or a whorl of branches. But I think I know that this is where I want the overall height to be. But I've got to do something. And I'm going to start with the root base. Another good reason for doing this is very practical. Do I have a pot that's suitable for this? Am I going to transition to bonsai soil right away? I know there are many opinions on that, but I think I have to. And I do have a shallowish, it's about that deep, round pot, which means I could do a wholesale chop of roots here and hope I've gotten some distance down in the soil up above. Now, when I witnessed Nigel doing such severe root work to his Norfolk Island pine to put it in a bonsai pot and to get the roots, you know, looking radial. After watching the repot, then I skipped to a couple of episodes later where he was, you know, pruning it once again after having been repotted, and it grew just fine. So that's the model I'm going to be using. And my biggest challenge will be estimates for the coldest you could keep this between 35 degrees Fahrenheit, which I could achieve in the greenhouse in the wintertime with my heater. Or, you know, some people said do not get it do not leave it out in temperatures below 55 degrees Fahrenheit. That's a big difference. So I'm going to see how the trees do. You know, for all I know, this was on somebody's deck until late October, November, and then brought into the house, and they just said, you know what, I'm not bringing you in anymore. And out on the street you go. All right, I've got a little bit more root base here. I'm going to work on it just a little bit more. I think I'm going to take a slice off the bottom of this. I'll go up slowly. It's got an interesting root base though, an interesting root structure. And it went around the pot many times. So if I'm going to be doing this, I've got to really tease this out. So you're not going to have to sit through it, fortunately. I'll speed things up. All right, let me continue combing out. That was successful. If you look at the base, you see there's just some wood there. I didn't cut through a lot of fresh roots. There were some, but I didn't cut through a lot of them. I'm going to try and get this to sit flat. And, you know, let's talk about our regrets. I should have pruned the upper part first, but I knew that this soil was going to be waterlogged, and I was hoping I didn't come across any root rot. I don't think I have. It doesn't smell foul. Here's the base of at least one of the trees. I'm not seeing multiples of that, so I don't know if those other trees are actually trees on their own, or this will always and forever have to stay as a clump, which is okay. I'm fine with that. All right, I'm gonna do some surgery on this, and I think I am gonna wash these roots. I gotta get this thing into bonsai soil. And I don't like to tie it into the pot, but because I am going to be doing work up top, I don't want it to jostle around. So I'll let the roots get established. This is surprisingly okay looking. I'll wash it off before I saw any of this. Maybe I am seeing multiple trunks. Doesn't matter. All right, let me wash this off, clean up, and we'll come back and look at the roots. Wow. I'll also get a pot ready in the meantime. All right, I've done some extensive clean out of the roots, far beyond what I wanted to do when I first looked at this, but actually this is what I wanted to do because I got to make a bonsai out of this. So I'm exposing all of the roots on the hope that Nigel was right. They grow easily from cuttings, because I may have just rendered whichever one of these, probably, yeah, it's this one. I may have just rendered this a cutting. There was an extension down in the bottom part that I did cut out, but it only had two little kind of thick roots coming out with no root hairs. So I'm assuming, or I'm hoping, that this one is sustained by some roots that developed up here. But I don't know that, or that tree's gonna die. Whatever. This was a free tree that I picked up during a walk with Luca. I'm hoping this is worth it. But if it does not pan out that way, well, I've got nothing invested in this tree. So the first thing I'm going to do is take that root back to where I know that there are no root extensions coming from it, which is way up here. Yeah, no roots coming. Maybe this little guy. Well, that wasn't sustaining anything. All right, so that's cut off. Let's see what else I can cut off wholesale. And before I put this in the pot, I am going to take some wholesale cuts to the top. I'll refine it later, but there's just too much mass up there. And note to self, always start by reducing the foliar mass on top if you've got a situation like this. This is my backyard. These are my fun little projects. And these are the mistakes I make. And hopefully will keep you from making those mistakes simply from watching mine. All right, so that took it pretty far up. What else is hard and in the way or going in the wrong direction? This is emanating from a place a little too high up. If I want this to lie flat, I'm going to take that off. And that's what I got. I've got a root here sticking straight down. And, you know, I've got to develop a lot of new root structure. And there's just no two ways about it. And I've seen it done. So why can't I do it? No reason. Yeah, this is one of the areas I wasn't able to clean properly. So maybe what I'm doing now will help me. Okay, the bulk of this is right here. I'm just going to take some mass off one piece at a time. Here's the second part of that, also coming down and around. I don't think I'm going to go more severe than that. Digging in with my Bonsai Acres chopstick. I'm going to clean this up a little bit more and come on back. Okay, it's time to make those wholesale chops. And I'll do it slowly. I've got green all the way to here. These are a little peaked. But I've got to go, well, I'm going to start here. I'm just going to cut it back to here. And see what happens. This is going to be difficult like this, but I want you to be able to see it. This is the tree that I said might come down all together. I think I'm just going to take it down to here for now. Then we've got this tree here. I'm going to cut it to here. I'm not really cutting that much off yet. Now the big guy. Well, not yet. Not yet. This one I can safely cut to here. This one's short, but I can cut it down even further to here. Big guy. Ready for the big guy? Oh, I've still got this one. I cut that one already. All right, let's do the big guy. Cutting it to here. So, as expected, these were individual trees. I don't know if you can see the movement there. Then you have this one here. They fashioned probably the only two little roots around it to kind of hold it in place. I'm not going to try and change any of that at this point. I don't think I ever could. So I'm going to live with what I got picking up a tree off the street and just try to make the best of it. And I may make some, I am going to definitely make some severe root cuts. This one that comes up and around, I mean, I'm inclined to cut it right off, but that's a lot. That's a lot to cut off. It does come around and there's a thick portion here that I could take off and still have one root down here and one over here. Actually, I could have two. I'm going to start by just taking the end off of this. And there are two roots going down and one, well, this one's a little awkward. I'm going to take this one off. Yeah, so if my soil height just covers that wound, that's not that bad. And if that's in the back of the planting anyway. I'll choose this as the front. I've got a lot to do here in order to make this sit nicely in a pot. And unfortunately, I think it's going to have to be severe. And hopefully I will have made the right decisions when all is said and done. You never know. If I can isolate the heavy part of the roots with these cuts and know that there's some fine root hairs and some active growth, root growth above that, that was a big cut, but there wasn't much left to it, so it helps me seat this easier. There's another piece of that root that keep me from sitting flat. And here's one, doesn't quite go straight down, but it starts that way. I get a better base. It's still a little high over here, so let's look at that. And this was that one big one going straight down with no roots coming from it. I just cut the first one, but I probably damaged it anyway. I should nibble this down, shouldn't I? Looking at this root base again, and I rewatched Nigel Saunders' video where he repotted these for the first time, or did the root pruning for the first time. He took the big knobs off the bottom and left pretty much nothing left. This knob is not going to make me happy over time. So I think I am going to bite the bullet and pare it down. This is going to be painful because there's a lot attached to this. But I think if I want to be happy with this in the long run, this has to go. I'm going to have to get it in a couple of bites. All right, that's better. And maybe I'll get some fine roots happening from that. I should trim a little bit more there. All right, that's better. That's better. All right, let's get it into the pot and tied down, then I'll deal with these roots that are on the top. I want to see how they look in the pot before I cut them. All right, I'm going to do the best I can to secure this. I've piled up some pumice in the middle to determine a height. And now I'm going to thread the the wire, the hold down wire, where I think it should go. I have some airline hose to soften the blow on the tree. I did a fair amount of scoring of the protective shield on the roots, so I'm a little worried about that. I'm hoping for new roots, and this is a whole new start to a tree I found on the street. Now, I'm going to get the other set of wires. I find this awkward and frustrating every single time. Okay. Okay, that's pretty good. Maybe a little bit more. Nope, that's pretty good. I don't think I'm going to do too much damage. All right, let's get this filled in with bonsai soil and get it all worked in. I'm not going to be able to do too much arranging of the roots radially. That may come in a future operation. Very good. All right. I'll go into a little bit of a fast mode here. I think it looks pretty good. I think this tree does nothing for the planting. If I pull this out, that's a pretty good cluster there of 5 trees. So I'm going to bite that bullet right now. You know what? Maybe I just want to see if everybody was right. To see if you got a good cut. Nothing will grow, it'll die. It's got as good roots as anything else, so that's an experiment. I'll probably get some wire on this tree and I'll mark the front right about here. Let's get that in your view as front. If I can move this tree a little bit. All right, so I'm going to work with that as the front, and I'm going to see what else I can prune, how much further I can prune everything. This tree I can prune to here, so I got a little bit more out of this tree. And since this is my apex, this will not be hitting that tree when I'm done, but it is right now. You know, before I go any further, I'm going to water this. That's pretty dry soil. Probably wicking all the moisture away. This will be watered a couple times. I'm just going to do this till it starts coming out the drainage holes. All right, back to this tree. it's done. There's nothing more I can do with it. I'm hoping to get some lower branching. And I'm going to pull this tree out a little bit. All right, this big one next to it, I already cut it down as far as I could. So it's time to deal with the apex and hope for some better growth. Well, these have to be Hail Marys. I'm just going to pick a spot. Say Hail Mary. I don't see any buds. I do have a decent branch on this side. And I'm not going to plant any cuttings this go around. I'll reserve that for when these trees survive. That's going to be an ugly tree for a while. I might even cut that one shorter. Let's see. All right, moving on to the other flanking tree. Can I go down any further with it? I can. You know, something tells me that I really want to go below that, but I want to see what these trees want to do. So I'm going to there. Take a lot off. Now, the big question. I don't know how to answer the big question yet, so let me work on these interim branches. This is my apex for the moment, so I'm going to go way back to there. This one I'm just going to cut off and hope for the best. And I think a whirl of 3 is totally fine for a Norfolk Island pine. And I'm going to trim these back. Trying to cut between the needles, but it's almost impossible. This is a tree in development. I'm going to time lapse for the rest of this. I hope you enjoy it. I hope I find some good music. All right, as you can see, the trees are as pruned as they could possibly be. I could probably take this one back a little bit, but I'm not going to. And you can see I wired up this tree. I did want to get it a little bit out of the way. And that might be sufficient for now. I didn't want to make it too many coils, but perhaps I should have. It's not really anchored very well. All right, I may do some other work on this, but let me just put a little bit more soil on this. Water it one more time. It's going to stay in the greenhouse for a while. We'll see what happens in the future. Free tree on the street. Who among us wouldn't do this? So here's the aftermath of what I've done. And the proposed front is coming up right about here. I'm not sure I like that either now that I look at it, but I'll manipulate these trunks over time. And ideally, if I could get the height of this tree down to here, this to here, this to here. I just want to see what happens with this guy, and I'm not sure if I can lower this one at all. If I get any growth at all down here, I'm going to consider taking the height down here as well, because I'd like to get it lower than this, and I do think that that's possible. So very, very severe work on my newly acquired Norfolk Island pine. I'm hoping for the best. I may have gone too far, especially on the roots, but I gotta make it a bonsai right away. So thanks for keeping me company in my backyard.